This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog with another weekly baseball observation recapping the offseason. So the Rockies went out and did some minor moves. They signed Chris Owens after I recorded this video over the weekend and Kelby Tomlinson. They signed themselves natural born infielders where they still don't know who's their second baseman. They don't know if they're trading Nolan Arenado. So signing guys like Chris Owen and Kelby Tomlinson, who have been major league starters or backups, is good depth. And also signing Elias Diaz when you only know that Tony Walters is your only active catcher because Drew Butera is old and he's a backup and he can't hit. It's just nice. Diaz is pretty young. They still don't really have an everyday catcher. Now the Marlins, they did some more, minor moves, signing Pat Venditti and Ryan Cook to minor league deal. Venditti's the switch pitcher, and Ryan Cook was pitching overseas. So they're getting some small pieces to say, hey, we got guys who used to be major leaguers. Now the Giants, after getting Kevin Gausman to be in the back rotation, they want to sign Tyson Ross to a minor league deal. But when he's healthy, he's good. So they just want innings out of him. The Tigers brought back Alex Wilson, a minor league deal. I don't think they're going to make him a starter, but the Tigers' bullpen wasn't that great last year, so good relief pickup move. Padres bring out Craig Stammen to form a good bullpen with Pomeranz, Stam, and Kirby Yates. And they signed Jared Murphy today to a minor league deal because they've been looking to trade one of their starting catchers, so you need some depth there. The Orioles, after the Alcides Escobar of not actually using him last year and using Richie Martin, Rule 5 guy, and backup, they want to sign Iglesias to a guaranteed move. That at least signals they're trying, and they have shortstop solidified, and if they want to, they can always trade him at the deadline. So at least one position in the infield is settled. Cubs, because they don't have a lot of money, they've signed guys to minor league deals. So they signed Hernan Perez, and now they're signing Carlos Swahi, who never worked with the Padres at second base or anywhere in the infield, and you have to go overseas to, make a livelihood. So for the Cubs, instead of going with these backups, just start Nico Horner or start Robel or start Ian Happ at second base. I don't know why they want to go with washed-up players. Dodgers signed Jimmy Nelson after they lost both Rich Hill and Ryu to free agency. Good idea. When Jimmy Nelson's been healthy, he's been great, and the Brewers relied on him to be a top of the rotation guy. Not in L.A. when you got Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, to name some. Jimmy Nelson just has to be the back of the rotation. The Rangers went and brought back Robinson Chirino, who throughout his tenure in Texas was mostly the backup. There were some seasons where he was a starter because the Rangers didn't have a starting catcher. Then he left and he went to Houston. Now he decided to come back. The reason why they did that was because if Jeff Mathis, who you signed to be your starting catcher because he's a great fielder, has a horrible year offensively because you know that, but then regresses defensively, what's the point? Chirino's improved slightly defensively in Houston. So maybe his slightly improvement on defense is better than Jeff Mathis' declinement on defense and can't hit. And then they also signed Luis Garcia to a minor league deal. So anything to help out their bullpen because they need bullpen help. It's a good idea. And any combination you get from Trinos and Mathis is fine. It's really their pitching that's going to take them to the playoffs. Diamondbacks brought Hector Rondon, former Cubs closer, former Astros setup man. I think they've silently signaled that, you know what? We failed with Brad Boxberger and Greg Holland as closer. Make Archie Bradley the full-time closer and just get him support. Good idea. The Yankees signed Nick Trapino and now he has minor deals. Trapino, he started some games before in his career, but he's really a relief pitcher, and the Yankees could always use another relief pitcher. Just kidding. They have such a good bullpen that if he gets healthy and they turn him around, man, their bullpen is going to be impossible to stop. And Chris Iannetta's, if Gary Sanchez gets hurt, Kyle Hirashawa barely has played. He's been the third guy because it's been Romine that's basically been the workhorse behind the plate when Sanchez doesn't play. So signing Eric Kratz and Iannetta is good because Iannetta still has stuff in the tank to be a backup or a third string catcher, not necessarily the starting catcher because he's still good enough. He's not old. Now the Pirates, I don't understand them. You're going to go with an outfield of Reynolds and Marte and Polanco. So if you want to sign a guy like Guillermo Herrera, who's been known for his glove work and his speed, who just got non-tendered because he can't hit for all the teams he's been on, you sign him to a minor league deal. You don't go when you're the Pirates or you're finishing last place again and spend major league dollars on a guy who can barely hit his weight and metrics say he's not as good a center fielder as he is in other places, and then DFA Pablo Reyes. I'm not saying Pablo Reyes is a great player, but your team not going anywhere. keep your young talent. If you want a veteran outfielder in case you trade Marte, sign him to a minor league deal. That's the part that doesn't make sense. The Brewers, they don't make sense either. They signed Logan Morrison to a minor league deal. Lomo, what are you doing? You're a first base in DH. You signed with an American League team so you can DH. Sign with a team that doesn't have a clear starting first baseman. The Brewers, after having Thames and Shaw and Moustakas and Aguilar on their team, Aguilar traded. Non-tendered Shaw, didn't let Thames go and let Moustakas go, so they had 0 first baseman. So they go out and get Ryan Healy, an injured-prone corner infielder who's best suited to play first base, not third base. They go out and sign Justin Smoke to play first base. They go out and sign Avi Garcia so they can bump Ryan Braun to first base. So we got Braun, Smoke, and Healy who are going to play first base. It's a really bad decision for Lomo to go there. And Jed Jerko, why are you going there? If Ryan Healy, if healthy, is going to be the third baseman, they have to figure out between Keston Hiura, Orlando Arcia, and Luis Urias who's going to play second, who's going to play short, and the other one's going to play third. That's another guy. You're going to be behind all of these players. Does Milwaukee plan on, once they figure out who their team is in spring training, trade Ryan Healy or Justin Smoke or Jed Jerko? I don't know what they're doing. And they signed Tuffy Gosher to a minor league deal. That's fine. They after having Pena and having them getting Navarro, they don't really have much catching depth, so good to bring back Tuffy Goswish. Now, the team that did the most has been the White Sox. So they added to that. They finally got Steve Chiswick. They missed out on Harris. They missed out on Daniel Hudson. So they went out and got Steve Chiswick, former closer with the Marlins, Mariners, and Marlins. Cubs closer for a bit and setup man. That's what the Sox needed. An eighth-inning man who's had a closer experience in case Colomé needs a day off or gets hurt. Because you can't trust Chase Fry or Kelvin Herrera. So, good move to get Chiswick. Great idea. Now, the Nationals, speaking of Daniel Hudson, they re-signed him. They re-signed Asdrubal Cabrera. So, to go Harris, they got Hudson. They don't have to go out and trade anybody at the deadline to get relievers. They got their relievers here. They haven't brought back Adams or Ryan Zimmerman or Brian Dozier. They say, no, we're going to get Eric Thames to play first base. And you know what? He can occasionally play the outfield. And we got Asdrubal Cabrera who can play second base, shortstop, third, and first. So he could play some second base. We can play some third base. And they also went against Starlin Castro. So Starlin Castro, after asking to bet in the middle lineup with the Cubs, having support in New York, but at least in Chicago, he had Rizzo as his support behind him in the lineup. He goes to the Marlins, and they stink. And they ask him not just to play second base, but to play third base and shortstop. I'm not saying he's a Gold Glove shortstop or the Nationals are going to ask him to play shortstop because they got Trey Turner, but they're just going to ask him to play second base. And in the lineup where he's got Juan Soto and Trey Turner, and you're going to have Asdrubal Cabrera and Eric Thames in the lineup at times, and Howie Kendrick, he's going to do a lot better, and plus the team is going to be trying to win. So I feel like his offensive 20-plus home runs, a guy who used to hit 200 hits a season, he may be close to that. And if he's a second base, then Cabrera and Kendrick can split off at third base or the occasional start at first base. And they just signed David Hernandez to a minor league deal as well and brought back Javi Guerra recently. So again, Hernandez and Guerra, if they compete for the bullpen and they make it, good for them. Their bullpen could be a strength and not a weakness. And their infield losing, Anthony Rendon, he pieced together Cabrera 20 home runs, Castro 20 home runs, even Howie Kendrick double-digit home runs, Eric Thames 20 home runs. You can make up for the loss of not having Anthony Rendon and having the better bullpen. Now, the final move of the week that, scratched the head a bit for a second was very interesting that the Rays, who already have an outfield with Hunter Renfroe, Gold Glover, Kiermaier, and Austin Meadows, who had an all-star season. They got rid of Guillermo Heredia, but whoop-de-doo, you can place him with anybody. And a team that already has the Lau brothers, G-Man Choi, they sign a bunch of guys. They go out and trade for Jose Martinez, who is miscast as a center fielder or even a right fielder in St. Louis. And St. Louis decided, you know what? He's not going to be the replacement to Marcelo Ozuna. So they trade him. But they've also traded another outfielder who's been good at every level. He's going to take probably Guillermo Heredia's spot as the fourth outfielder, and Martinez is probably going to switch around between DH and first base in the outfield. So the Rays have so many moving parts that it's a little bit weird. And they get themselves a draft pick. Woo! A better draft pick. That's nice. But they give up Matt Lieberchor, who's supposedly one of the best pitching prospects, And they also give up a catching prospect and a different. They basically, let's say we swap draft picks, so we get a better draft pick. We trade a catching prospect to get a fourth outfielder, and then we get Jose Martinez for a pitching prospect. I know the Rays are hard up for offense and outfield help, but why are you trading a catching prospect, swapping and trying to swap draft picks and trading one of your better pitching prospects just to get Jose Martinez? It's one thing if you got Marcell Ozuna in a trade if he was still under contract, or Taylor O'Neill or Harrison Bader, but I don't know what you're getting Jose Martinez and a backup outfielder. It doesn't really make that much sense for them. Cardinals, they could, hey, we have an outfield log jam. We'll get rid of 2 outfielders and we swap draft picks, but we get a catching prospect because at some point Molina's going to retire, and we get a pitching prospect everybody could use more pitching. Now, it's also arbitration deadline, so Andrew Heaney, top pitcher in the Angels rotation, they got the arbitration. Michael Gibbons, best reliever on that team. Speaking of the Rays, Renfroe, the Indians and their right fielder Tyler Naquin, the Red Sox with their best reliever Matt Barnes, the Rays their pitcher Tyler Glasnow, the Angels and their other reliever Kenyon Middleton, and as well for the National League you have Michael Lorenzen on the Reds, Matt Andriese on the Diamondbacks, Tyone on the Pirates, and Robbie Ray of the Diamondbacks. And the Braves, Swanson and Foltynewicz, and the Mets and Roberto and Robert Gelsman as well, and other arbitration players that already agreed earlier in the week, where David Peralta agreed to an extension with the Diamondbacks, and Cam Bedrosian avoided arbitration with the Angels, Michael A. Taylor avoided with the National, Chaz Rowe in the Rays, Stassi in the Angels, and Brandon Drury in the Blue Jays as well. And Miguel Castro on the Orioles. So that was another weekly edition for off-season baseball recaps and weekly base observations. For On the Radar Entertainment Blog, I'm Raider. See you next time.